AHDAWAM. I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakha Kodash. I want to give double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, because those are the men who I learned this truth from through the spirit and power of Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai. Yahweh is the true name of the God of Israel. Yahweh Shai is who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ, but his one and only true name is Yahweh Shai. And pretty much I want to be doing a lesson concerning the promised land of Israel, and just showing according to the scriptures, you so-called Negroes, Hispanics, and Native American Indians, our seed line makes up the 12 tribes of Israel. We are the seed of the promise. And as the seed of the promise, we have inheritance rights based off of our ancestors, that's known as the fathers of the promise, which is Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. All right, through Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, which Jacob's name was changed to Israel, the Most High, the God of Israel, Yahweh, he gave us a land. All right, he gave us for our inheritance as his princes, right, as his chosen nation. He gave us the greatest land on the planet Earth, which is the promised land of Israel. All right, so in this lesson, I'm just going to show you a quick map of how big the promised land actually is, and also how it's going to expand in the kingdom of heaven. Because the scriptures say what, and I'm going to read it in Matthew the 24th chapter, as well as Obadiah the 1st chapter, that we're going to possess Edom. All right, Edom, they're going to serve 1,000 years of hardcore slavery, pursuant to Revelation 20:5. All right, the prophecy of Esau, his heel being held by Jacob, representing that when the Edomites go down, when Yahweh Shai takes them out of rulership, the Israelites is going to rule on the planet Earth forever in the everlasting kingdom, because we're going to be immortal. So that's why it's going to be everlasting, because we're never going to sin. All right, so the Edomites, as well as all the heathen, they're going to go into slavery for 1,000 years. That's why the scriptures say that we lived and reigned with Yahweh Shai for 1,000 years, because it's going to take 1,000 years for the kingdom of heaven to be built up and fully established. All right, so when the Edomites is wiped out after 1,000 years of hardcore slavery, their land is going to be given unto the Israelites, all right, the Judites. So now let's read this, because you have to understand that we're in biblical times. All right, this is Ecclesiastes 4:16. There is no end of all the people. So the Edomites, they still exist on the planet Earth. All the biblical nations that you read about in the scriptures, they still exist on the planet Earth. They're just being called by different names. Going back to what? Isaiah 25:7. The Lord is removing that veil, all right? That veil that spread throughout all the planet Earth, because he's revealing everybody's nationality, who the chosen seed line, the chosen nation is on the planet Earth, all right? Who comes from where, the judgments that's going to happen to particular nations, all right? The Lord is revealing everything. So now let's go back, right? So there's no end to all the people. So why are you people saying that the Edomites, they were done away with? Oh, the book of Obadiah happened already. So who the hell are we on the planet Earth? All right, if the Edomites is wiped out, then that means you got to throw away the Bible, because the scriptures say that what? That the Edomites in the future, they're going to go through their harsh judgments, and they're going to pay for everything they did throughout all the generations on earth. All right, but that's going to happen in the future. So they never paid for everything that they done. All right, rape, robbery, murder, murdering innocent people, murdering the Israelites. All right, the disease warfare on the Israelites, the slander, stealing our inheritance, stealing our identity, you know, trying to separate our people from the Most High, having them worship Satan in Hollywood. I mean, I could go on and on. How they degraded our people. You know, they formed holidays on the bloodshed, the genocide that they did to our people. They never paid for all that. All right, all the hatred that they show our people. spreading westernization, feminism on our people, the sodomite agenda. I could go on and on and on. The more I talk about it, I'm gonna start getting pissed off. All right, but the point is, these people, they still exist. This is why you see all this darkness. All right, everybody worshiping Satan, from the fashion to the love of money through their banking system, right? These people are absolutely evil. So the point is, these people, they still exist. The so-called white man is Zebulon, they are the Edomites, all right? So it says there is no end of all the people. So even the Israelites still exist today. And everybody's starting to know that the real Jews are the so-called African Americans, all right? The so-called Negroes, right? It says, even of all that have been before them. So when you read about the sons of God, right, or the sons of Yahweh, right, in Genesis, the 5th and 6th chapter, they still exist on the planet Earth. Read Luke, the 3rd chapter, all right? It's just that we're not being called, what we used to be recognized as, all right? We lost our stature, we lost that status. But the Lord, he said what? I will give you fame where we was put to shame. So now, all right, through Ezekiel the 37th chapter, through Yahweh's blood of sacrifice, now we have the gift of faith, right? And now, what's going on now? The gospel is spreading, the correct doctrine is spreading, and now the world is starting to wake up to who the real Israelites are, all right? Who the real Jews are, who the real lost 10 tribes of Israel are, all right? And everything is being revealed before Yahweh returns back. So it says, so all them people that you read about in Genesis, they still exist today. It's just that when they came back on the planet Earth in a reincarnation, for those that can receive it, all right, they came out of either Shem, Ham, or Japheth, because after the flood, there was 18 nations that was established, all right, and the chosen nation is the nation of Israel, that chosen seed line, which men carry the seed is the sperm, all right? So if you're on your father's line, if you don't come from Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, right, a so-called Negro, Hispanic, or Native American Indian man, then you're not an Israelite, all right, period. It says, yep, it says, they also that come after shall not rejoice in them. Surely this is also vanity and vexation of spirit. Let's read that in the NLT real quick. This is Ecclesiastes 4:16, right? It says, endless crowds stand around them, but then another generation grows up and reject them too. So it is all meaningless, like chasing the wind, all right? So the NLT is a little different, but it's going into the fullity of political power. Pretty much you hear one moment and then you go on the next. So the whole duty of the Israelite man is to what? To keep that legacy of spreading the gospel, all right, glorifying Yahweh and Yahweh, and to the best of your abilities, keeping the commandments. So now we're going to start to get into it, all right? Now we're known as the seed of the promise because we're descendants of our chosen forefathers, all right? The fathers of the promise, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So let's read this real quick, right? So I typed in on Google, Abraham the land KJV, and this is what popped up. It says in the King James Version, Yahweh, because that's his real name, right? When you saying you worship God or God this, God that, what's the name of your God that you worship? So when they say God, they really referring to Yahweh, right? Yahweh promises Abraham, initially Abram, right, the land of Canaan, telling him to leave his country for a land that he will show him. And I'm going to read that in Genesis 12, right? It says Yahweh promises to give this land to his seed, right, which is descendants forever. So the land belongs to a particular seed on the planet Earth. It says, prompting Abraham to build altars to the Lord, right? And them altars that had the name of the Lord, because Abraham, he knew the name of the Lord. He wasn't just calling him Al-Shadia, which means terrible demon-like power, right? It says, prompting Abraham to build altars to Yahweh in various places like Sikkim and Bethel. And they got the scriptures, right? So now, let's get into it. Oh, matter of fact, you know what? I was going to read it in the blue letter. I could just read it right there, make it quicker. So it says, key verses on Abraham and the land. Genesis 12:1. It says, now the Lord, now the word Lord is in caps, so it's referring to Yahweh, right? It says, has said unto Abram, get thee out of thy country and from thy kindred and from thy father's house unto a land that I will show thee. Because Abraham, he was also known as what? A sojourner, all right? Now, remember, originally he started where? Ur of the Chaldees. Then he migrated up, right, to Syria, and then to Egypt, and then to the promised land of Israel, all right? It says, yep, that I will show thee. Now, this is Genesis 12:7. 1 second. Yep, Genesis 12:7. It says, and the Lord appeared unto Abram and said, unto thy seed will I give this land, right? That seed would be who? Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. Jacob name was changed to Israel, on down to the 12 tribes of Israel, all right? Nobody else. So the promised land of Israel, it belongs to that seed. And when Yahushua returns back, he's going to make us sovereign and independent again by bringing us to our land and establishing us as the chosen nation, all right? That's our inheritance rights. That's part of the new covenant. It says, and there builded he an altar unto Yahweh who appeared unto him, all right? Genesis 13:14-15. It says, lift up now thy eyes and look from the place where thou art northward and southward and eastward and westward. For all the land which thou seest, to thee will I give it, and to thy seed forever. All right? So as the chosen seed line on the planet Earth, we was promised an inheritance, which will be the promised land of Israel, which the heathen, they currently occupy. When you read Joel, the third chapter, Joel, the 3rd chapter, first couple of verses, right? Ezekiel, the 36th chapter, goes into it, how the heathens and how the Edomites, they control that Zionist created Israel, right? You got the Palestinians that's in our land, right? But it doesn't belong to them. It belongs to the real Jews. It belongs to the 12 tribes of Israel. And when Yahushua physically returns back, by the way of the so-called UFOs, he's going to bring us to our land. There's a bunch of scriptures on that. So we don't need to go over there because they're not ruling in righteousness. All right? Chosen seed line, which is the nation of Israel, we're not in our land right now. According to the scriptures, they will be scattered in exile. That's why it says in Matthew, the 24th chapter, when Yahushua returns back, he's going to gather his elect from the four winds, the elect of the seed line of Israel that's been predestinated unto salvation through Yahushua. All right? So seed line is very important. Nationality is very important when you read the scriptures. So Genesis 13:17, arise, walk through the land in the length of it, and it breadth, and it says, and in the for I will give it unto thee. All right, so there you go. It says the context, Abraham was 75 years old when he left Haran to travel to this land. Okay, so yep, the division, it says after parting with Lot, all right, because they both had great substance, it says Yahweh affirmed the promise of the land to Abraham and his descendants. All right, let's read a little more. This is Genesis chapter 15, verse 18. It says, in the same day, the Lord, right, Yahweh, whenever you see the word Lord in caps, it's referring to Yahweh, the God of Israel, made a covenant, meaning an agreement, right, with Abram, saying, unto thy seed have I given this land. All right, so the promised land of Israel, it belongs to his seed, the chosen seed, which would be the Israelites, right? It says, from the river of Egypt unto the great river, the river Euphrates, right? And then it names all these different Canaanite tribes, because Eventually, what would happen? The Canaanites in that land, they would be slaughtered by Joshua and Caleb, all right, which is all the will of the Lord, so that we could reclaim our land. So the Lord allowed the iniquity to build up. So this is what it looks like when you read Genesis chapter 15, verses 18 through 21. This is the promised land of Israel. This is what the seed line of Israel, the so-called Negroes, Hispanics, and Native American Indians, will inherit. When YAHAWASHAH returns back, he's going to bring us to our land. All right, this is something to look forward to, because right now there's a lot of divide and conquer. All right, our people is under a division spirit, you know, repping country flags and, you know, the language barrier and being scattered, hating one another, right? Not having a place you could call home. But what does Galatians 4:26 say? It says Jerusalem, which is the mother of us all right? So our land is what? The promised land of Israel that you're looking at. See? So this is how big our land is. And also the scriptures say what? That we're going to possess Edom, all right? Edom, their land is going to be a part of the promised land of Israel. Okay? So this is how big our land actually is. Not that little strip in West Bank, Israel. Not that Zionist created state of Israel. All right? This is how big our land actually is. See? Zoom in on it. Okay, so jumping back. So now we dealing with what? How the inheritance, it was passed down through that particular seed line. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So now we up to Isaac, right? So I went on Google, I typed in Isaac. Isaac gets Abraham land, right? Let's go right here. Excuse me, it's a little cold outside. Spelled it wrong. It says in Genesis 26, Yahweh affirms the covenant promise of the land to Isaac, passing the inheritance from Abraham to his son during a famine in Gerar. Yahweh commands Isaac to stay in Canaan, not to go to Egypt, promising to bless him, multiply his descendants, and give them all these lands as an oath fulfilled from Abraham. All right. It says key details regarding Isaac inheriting the land include reaffirming of the covenant. The promise of land is not new, but a confirmation of the oath Yahweh made to Abraham. The promise in Genesis 26, 3-4, Yahweh tells Isaac, sojourn in this land, and I will be with you and will bless you, for to you and to your offspring, which goes into seed, right? The seed in the Greek, which will be sperma, all right? That's how you trace your lineage, your descendancy, your genealogy, all right? That's what you are. You're an offspring of a man, all right? It says, I will give all these lands. Reclaiming wells. Isaac redug the wells his father Abraham had dug, asserting ownership over the land of Canaan, right? Settling in Gerar. It says, despite famine, Isaac stayed in the region Gerar as instructed and prospered, with the Lord blessing him 100-fold harvest. It says, the promise to Jacob. Later, Yahweh affirms this same inheritance passed from Abraham to Isaac and Jacob subsequently to Jacob. And this is recorded in Genesis chapter 28, verses 13-15. Isaac is noted as the only patriarch who was born in the land, lived his entire life in the land, and died in the land. All right? So there you go. I don't even really got to read Genesis 26 because you could just read it yourself. That pretty much summed up everything. All right? So that's pretty much it. I don't even got to read all that. Now let's deal with inheritance, right? Because now that we was living in the land in the past, there's certain laws that we can keep. See, these laws we can't keep because we're not in our land. We're not sovereign and independent. So now let's read Numbers chapter 36, which deals with what? Inheritance by marriage. So now, let's deal with it, right? So I'm going to read this in the NLT version, right? This is Numbers chapter 36 and 1. Now it says, this is dealing with women who inherit property, or how women in Israel inherited property, right? It says inheritance by marriage. So this is going into particular laws concerning ownership of particular land within the land of Israel. All right, so now let's read in the NLT. Numbers 36 and 1. It says, then the heads of the clans of Galilee, descendants of Machir, son of Manasseh, son of Joseph, came to Moses and the family leaders of Israel with a petition, right? They said, sir, the Lord, right? The word Lord in caps, we talk about Yahweh, instructed you to divide the land by scarce lot among the people of Israel. You were told by the Lord to give the grant of land owned by our brother Zelophehad to his daughters, right? Because normally it's supposed to go to the sons or that particular tribe. Verse 3, it says, but if they marry men from another tribe, their grants of land will go with them to the tribe into which they marry. In this way, the total area of our tribal land will be reduced. So this is why when you read in the scriptures, you know, really you was getting a wife from your particular tribe, because ultimately that's how the Lord originally set it up. Although it wasn't bad if you had like intertribal marriages, like a Judite man marrying a woman from ASHUR, just to give you an example. All right, but really, you know, when you marry outside of that, now your land, they can start to get reduced. So that's what it's going into. So let's read it again, because this is dealing with what? Women who inherit property, or how a woman inherits property, right? So Numbers 36 and 3. But if they marry men from another tribe, right, concerning the Israelite woman, right, it says their grants of land will go with them to the tribe into which they marry. All right. So we talk about a woman from one particular tribe marrying a man from another particular tribe of the nation of Israel. When she marries that man outside of her tribe, the ownership of that land, it could go to that man now. All right, which will reduce that land that tribe is supposed to inherit. So it says, in which they marry. In this way, the total area of our tribal land will be reduced. Then, when the year of Jubilee comes, which I got to do a video on that again, it says, their portion of land will be added to that of the new tribe, causing it to be lost forever to our ancestral tribe. All right. Verse 5. So Moses gave the Israelites this command from Yahweh: the claim of the men of the tribe of Joseph, which when you read Numbers, I believe is 1 and 32 or 33, around there. The tribe of Joseph later on became known as the tribe of Ephraim, or it's interchangeable. All right. So it says, which are the so-called Puerto Ricans today. It says, Numbers 36 and 5. So Moses gave the Israelites this command from the Lord: the claim of the men of the tribe of Joseph is legitimate. This is what the Lord commands concerning the daughters of Zelophehad. Let them marry anyone they like, as long as it is within their own ancestral tribe. All right. So that what? That land can stay the Ephraimites' land, or, you know, that woman from Simeon, she marries a man from her tribe, so that land can stay that particular tribe land, so that it doesn't get reduced. All right. Because the scriptures say what? Let everything be done decently and in order. That's what the Lord's statutes and commandments is. So continuing on. Back from the top again, this is Numbers 36 and 6. It says, this is what the Lord commands concerning the daughters of Zelophehad. Let them marry anyone they like as long as it is within their own ancestral tribe. So we already broke that down, all right? It says, none of the territorial land may pass from tribe to tribe. So this is a law. So whatever allotted land belongs to the Judites, that's the Judites. Whatever land for Benjamin, Levi, on down, it belongs to that particular tribe. So this is how things was done in the ancient world, all right? So it says, for all the land given to each tribe must remain within the tribe to which it was first allotted. It says the daughters throughout the tribes of Israel who are in line to inherit property must marry within their tribe so that all the Israelites will keep their ancestral property. All right? So this is laws. It says no grant of land may pass from one tribe to another. Each tribe of Israel must keep its allotted portion of land. The daughters of Zelophehad did as the Lord commanded Moses. It says, Mahlah, Tarza, Hoglah, Malkah, and Noah all married cousins on their father's side. All right? Continuing on. It says, they marry into clans. It says clans, it's funny, in the NLT. Matter of fact, let me just finish it off in KJV. Because clan, tribe, similar wording, but I like it in the KJV, how it sounds. I like tribe better. So it says, Numbers 36:12, it says, and they were married to the families of the sons of Manasseh, the son of Joseph, and their inheritance remained in the tribe of the family of their father. These are the commandments and the judgments which the Lord commanded by the hand of Moses unto the children of Israel in the plains of Moab by Jordan near Jericho. All right? So there you go. So that's how it was done back then. All right? Now, concerning the kingdom of heaven, the promised land of Israel, it only belongs to the Israelites. And this is going to still take place in the future. The heathen Gentiles, they can't be a part of our inheritance because they don't come from that seed line. So they're not going to be living within the borders of the kingdom of heaven, all right, within the promised land of Israel, because they're flesh and blood. Flesh and blood cannot inherit the kingdom of the Most High. Nothing imperfect is going to be dwelling within the kingdom of heaven, all right? Anything that's abominable is going to be dwelling outside of the promised land of Israel, outside of the kingdom of heaven. When you read this chapter, Revelation, the 21st chapter, all right? So this is Revelation chapter 21, and I'm just start at verse 10 concerning New Jerusalem. Revelation 21:10 concerning the New Jerusalem. Because when you read Hebrews, the 8th chapter, 1 Corinthians, the 15th chapter, all right, salvation is what? Being delivered from ruin, being delivered from destruction. What's prophesied to be destroyed? Babylon the Great, which is America, all right? So the elect of the nation of Israel, the 1/3 that you read about in Zechariah 13:9, we're going to be delivered before the destruction takes place, all right? So it says New Jerusalem. So Jerusalem, it's a people before it's a place. So the New Jerusalem is talking about what? Our bodies being changed. Because when we receive salvation, we're also stepping into that new covenant first, all right? That's why it says in Revelation 20:5, blessed is he that hath part in the first resurrection through predestination, all right? So that's the privilege that the elect of the nation of Israel have through Yahushua to step into that new covenant first. So that's the New Jerusalem. We're going to get those new bodies that you read about in 1 Corinthians, the 15th chapter. So that's the New Jerusalem. So verse 10, it says, and he carried me away. This is John the Revelator. Because when you read in the book of Revelation, what's being revealed unto John? Future prophecies, right? Because when he seen all these visions didn't happen at his present generation, at that present time. when he was on the island of Patmos. All right, he received visions of the future. So it says, and he carried me away in the spirit to a great and high mountain, and showed me that great city, which is talking about Israel, right? The holy Jerusalem, descending out of heaven from the Most High. Because when you read Revelation 18:4, all right, Isaiah chapter 26, verse 20, right? The elect of the nation of Israel is going to be delivered from the nuclear destruction. So we're going to be in the chambers. We're going to be in these ships, because this is how we're going to receive salvation. Our spirits is going to be beamed up and placed inside of immortal extraterrestrial bodies. The reason why we say extraterrestrial here at Great Millstone, because we're going to have the benefits of an angel. But we know when we read the scriptures in Matthew the 22nd chapter, we know that angels can't and don't reproduce. All right, so we're going to have the powers of an angel. It says that in Zechariah 12:8 as well. All right, the tabernacle of David shall be as gods or angels of God or something like that. So we're going to have the benefits and powers of an actual angel while still being terrestrial and reproducing. All right, so this is how we're going to receive salvation. So when it says New Jerusalem, all right, coming out of heaven, it's talking about us descending out of these ships. So it says, yep, descending out of heaven from the Most High, right? Having the glory of the Most High, and her light was like unto a stone, most precious, even like a jasper stone, clear as crystal. It says, and had a wall great and high. It says, and had 12 gates, and at the gates 12 angels, and names written thereon. It says, which are the names of the 12 tribes of the children of Israel. They don't say nothing about heathen nations having part of our inheritance. They can't have part in our inheritance because they don't come from that seed line. It's just that simple. All right, salvation, it can't be for everybody. That won't even make it special. All right, salvation is strictly only for the elect of the nation of Israel. For you people that like to say, oh, well, Revelation 7 and 9, it says all nations and kindreds. Yeah, but why would verse 10 use the word our God if it ain't talk about Israelites? He's known as the God of Israel. All right, so this is our inheritance by seed, by nationality. It says 12 tribes of the children of Israel. On the east 3 gates, on the north 3 gates, on the south 3 gates, and on the west 3 gates. It says, and the wall of the city had 12 foundations, and in them the names of the 12 apostles of the Lamb. Who's the 12 apostles of the Lamb? When you read Matthew the 10th chapter, first couple of verses. All right, the 12 disciples that went on to become the 12 apostles, right? It says, continuing on, it says, and he had talked with me, and he that talked with me had a golden reed to measure the city, and the gates thereof, and the wall thereof. It says, and the city lieth 4 square, and the length is as large as the breadth, right? And he measured the city with the reed 12,000 furlongs. The length and the breadth and the height of it are equal. And he measured the wall thereof 144 cubits, according to the measure of a man, that is, of the angel. And the building of the wall of it was of jasper, and the city was pure gold. Yeah, the city is pure gold. All right, it's going to take 1,000 years. That's why the scriptures say in Revelation 25, they lived and reigned with Yahweh 1,000 years, because it's going to take 1,000 years for the kingdom of heaven to be built up by the heathen Gentiles. All right, like unto clear glass. Verse 19, it says, and the foundations of the wall of the city were garnished with all manner of precious stones. The first foundation was jasper, the second sapphire, the third chalcedony. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, but you could Google it and see what it looks like and get the correct pronunciation. It says the fourth an emerald. It says the fifth sardonyx, the sixth sardis or sardius, the seventh chrysolite, the eighth beryl, the ninth topaz, the 10th chrysoprasus, the 11th adjacent, the 12th amethyst. It says, and the 12 gates were 12 pearls. Every several gate was of one pearl, and the street of the city was pure gold. Y'all can't even imagine nothing like that. All right, but this is gonna physically happen. This is gonna become reality. All right, as it were transparent glass. Dubai ain't got nothing on the kingdom of heaven, as far as the how it looks, how it's structured and stuff like that. It says, continuing on, the street of the city was pure gold, as it were transparent glass, and I saw no temple therein. Right? Let's read that again, because you got people that spread confusion in the past, talking about, oh well, yeah, Israel's gonna have, a temple in it. No, we don't need it. Why would we need a temple when animal sacrifice is done away with? Y'all don't read the scriptures? What is there to debate? Let's read it again. Revelation 21 and 22. Because we the priests of the Most High. All right, we read Hebrews the 8th chapter, Ezekiel the 37th chapter. The Lord's statutes and commandments is going to be in our inward parts, so we're going to be able to keep the Lord's statutes and commandments perfectly. Ain't going to be no need for no temple within the kingdom of heaven. All right, because we're never going to sin. We're going to know how to keep all the laws perfectly. We're just going to naturally do it without thinking about it, without worrying, oh man, should I eat this? Do I got to read the ingredients for that? Ain't going to be no need for that, because it's going to be within us. So it says, Revelation 21 and 22, and I saw no temple therein. Hello, read the scriptures. For the Lord power almighty and the Lamb are the temple of it. It says, and the city had no need of the sun, neither of the moon to shine in it, for the glory of the Most High did lighten it. So, the illumination from the city, all the precious gemstones, the people, when you read Daniel the 12th chapter, we're going to have a certain glow to us. The scriptures say wisdom maketh for man's face to shine. We're going to be literally glowing in the kingdom of heaven, man. The city's going to be glowing. It's going to be illuminated. It says, did lighten it, and the Lamb is the light thereof. And the nations of them which are saved shall walk in the light of it, and the kings of the earth do bring their glory and honor unto it. Linking up with what? Isaiah the 60th chapter. The heathen nations, the 17 heathen nations, they're going to go into slavery underneath the Israelites. They're going to give us they're going to give us concubines. They're going to give us precious resources, precious metals, anything we want, constantly bringing gifts every single day. This is Revelation 21 and 24. It says, and the nations. Let's go into this word nations, right? Let's see what it says. The word is ethnos, the same word used in Revelation, the 7th chapter, which is referring to the children of Israel. We read in Revelation 7 and 4, by the way, right? That's what verse 9 and 10 in Revelation 7 is referring to. Revelation 7 and 4, the children of Israel. So this word is ethnos, right? And it says a multitude, whether of men or of beasts, associated or living together. A company, troop, swarm, a multitude of individuals. Who would be the individuals in this case? It would be the children of Israel, of the same nature or genus, the human family, singular. A tribe, nation, people, group, singular. All right? Here's the last one. Paul uses the term for Gentile Christians. Who were the original Christians? When you read Acts the 6th and the 11th chapter, read it, so you can know who the Christians were. The Christians were Jews that followed the Messiah. All right? So the Gentile Christians, it would have to be what? Israelites that was in a Gentile state of mind, following the Gentile ways, made them pagan. It made the circumcision, which was Israelites that was raised up as Jews, look at their other fellow Israelites as Gentiles. Why? Because they was keeping the pagan customs and believing and knowing the pagan philosophies of the heathen Gentiles, all right? Raising their children up after the manner of the heathen. So they was looked at as Gentiles, all right? And when you read Galatians, the 2nd chapter, That was Paul's office, to teach the uncircumcision, which is the Israelites that was in a Gentile state of mind. Going back to what? The history that's recorded in 1st and 2nd Maccabees, how the Israelites became Hellenized and became in a Gentile state of mind. All right? That's why when you read in the New Testament concerning the uncircumcision or concerning the Israelites that was looked at as Gentiles, right? By the time that took place, that was the ancient Roman Empire. The Israelites, they was already Hellenized for the previous captivity. So that's why they was looked at as Gentile Christians. Paul's job was to spread the gospel and the correct doctrine to the uncircumcision, which is the Israelite foreigners in the Gentile state of mind. All right? That's why he uses words like brethren, words like us, saints. The word church is in there, which is talking about what? An assembly of Israelites. So it says, Revelation 21:24, and the nations, right? Which is talking about Israelites. The Israelites are scattered throughout all the nations. It says, of them which are saved shall walk in the light of it, and the kings of the earth, talk about the 17 heathen nations, do bring their glory and honor into it. And the gates, so if the heathen nation is going to bring their glory and honor to it, meaning they got to walk up. When you read Isaiah 2 and 3, that means they're not going to be dwelling within the kingdom of heaven itself, within the promised land. They got to walk to it and bring their honor and resources. All right? It says, and the gates of it shall not be shut at all by day. Because there ain't going to be no nation waging war against us. All right? We ain't going to have to worry about invasion or being besieged. It says, for there shall be no night there. It says, and they shall bring the glory and honor of the nations into it. Right? And there shall in no wise enter into it anything that defileth. So the heathens is flesh and blood. The scriptures say what? Flesh and blood cannot inherit the kingdom of the Most High. So if the heathens is not a part of the new covenant, which involves the Israelites only being changed, all right, being given the extraterrestrial spiritual bodies that allows us to keep the law, statutes, and commandments perfectly and live within the promised land of Israel, right? How the hell are the heathen going to dwell there if they're not a part of the new covenant? Come on, man. If the heathens was in the promised land, they would defile the land, being in flesh and blood, sinning. We're not going to be able to sin in the kingdom of heaven. So it says, and there shall in no wise enter into it anything that defileth. Nothing abominable is going to be within the kingdom of heaven. Neither whatsoever worketh abomination or maketh a lie. But they which are written in the Lamb's book of life, which is who? The elect of the nation of Israel that you read about in Ephesians, the 1st chapter, that's predestinated to receive salvation. Ain't gonna be no heathens there. That's not a part of their inheritance. They don't come from the seed of the promise. So how the fuck can they inherit the kingdom of heaven? That's stupid. That's not what's written in the scriptures. For all you people that say, oh, salvation is for everybody. No, it ain't. This is Numbers chapter 24 and verse 18. All right. Now, this is a future prophecy. This is Numbers 24 and 18. It says, and Edom, right? Edom referring to the seed line of Edom, which would be the so-called white man, their seed line, right? And Edom shall be a possession, meaning what? Their land. So after 1,000 years, our land is going to be bigger, all right? It's going to be bigger because we're going to possess their land. It says, and Edom shall be a possession. Seir also shall be a possession. So the people and their land is going to be our possession. Going back to what? Isaiah the 14th chapter, first 3 verses. It says, Seir also shall be a possession for his enemies, and Israel shall do valiantly. All right? So that's the point. Let's skip down to verse 20. And when he looked on Amalek, who's Amalek? These Jewish imposters, right? He took up his parable and said, Amalek was the first of the nations, but his latter end shall be that he perish forever. Going back to Obadiah the 1st chapter. They're going to be wiped out as a people on the planet Earth. So what's going to happen to their land? We're going to inherit it. I'm going to prove it. So the promised land of Israel that you read about in Genesis chapter 15, 18 to 21, it's going to get even bigger. He's going to enlarge our land. All right. It says, but his latter end shall be that he perish forever. So if he perish forever, then what's going to happen to his land? It's going to belong to other people. It's going to belong to us. This is Obadiah chapter 1 and verse, let's see. Yeah. Obadiah 1 and 17. It says, but upon Mount Zion shall be deliverance. So salvation is only for the elect of the nation of Israel. It says, and there shall be holiness, and the house of Jacob shall possess their possessions, because it's our inheritance. It's our right to own our land, because we come from their seed, right? The house of Jacob shall possess their possessions, and the house of Jacob shall be a fire, and the house of Joseph a flame, because we're going to come together, right? Ain't going to be no more divide and conquer, language barrier, you know, scattering. We're going to be united through YAHSHAWAR, right? It says, and the house of Esau for stubble, and they shall kindle in them and devour them, and there shall not be any remaining, right, of the house of Esau, meaning the seed of Esau, right? For the Lord has spoken it. And they of the south shall possess the mount of Esau, and they of the plain, the Philistines, and they shall possess the fields of Ephraim, and the fields of Samaria, and Benjamin shall possess Galilee. All right? So that's the point, because we're going to possess that. Now, let me read this in the NLT version. All right? This is Obadiah chapter 1, verse 19. It says, then my people, this is the NLT version, then my people living in the Negev, right, which would be who? The tribe of Judah and the tribe of Simeon. Then my people living in the Negev will occupy the mountains of Esau, occupy. Those living in the foothills of Judah will possess the Philistine plains and take over the fields of Ephraim and Samaria. Because when you read in the scriptures, the reason why we went to war with the Philistines so much is because they was near our borders. So they would invade our borders a lot. All right? That's why we constantly went to war with nations like the Philistines, you know, Amalek, being so close to Judah, right? Judah and Simeon. Then you got the tribe of Manasseh, Reuben, Gad, bordering Moab. So they will go to war with Moab. Why? Because they was close to our borders. So they will invade our borders, which is an act of war, right? It says, and the people of Benjamin will occupy the land of Galilee. All right? That's the point. So this is a map of the Negev, right? As you can see right here, that's where the Negev is at. That's where the tribe of Judah and Simeon was dwelling at. All right? And Esau, the land of Mount Seir, you know, Edom, that was over there in the Negev. So the Lord is saying what? That the tribes that's living within this region of the Negev, which would be Judah and Simeon, we're going to possess Edom. All right? This is the AI overview. It says in the Bible, the Negev was primarily occupied by the tribe of Judah in the north and the tribe of Simeon in the south. It was also inhabited by Amalekites and the Canaanites before the Israelite settlement. All right. It says, following the Babylonian exile in 586 BC, the Edomites took possession of the region. So there you go. So if we're going to occupy the Negev, that means we're going to get it back. All right. And who currently controls it? Based off of what I read and based off of end time prophecy, us being in the time of the Gentiles. All right, the Edomites. So the Lord is saying what? After 1,000 years of hardcore slavery, we're going to do away with the nation of Edom, meaning the seed of Edom, and we're going to possess their land. This is literally what I just read. All right, so Lord willing, you was edified by the lesson. Shalom.